Edgar was there with his dad, and they were just walking around. Hey, let's go check out the bass area.
What a pleasure to have him back on the podcast. It's been over a decade, I think, but one of my favorite people in the bass world, in the music world, just one of my favorite people in general. I'm Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations, and we are talking to none other than Dave Anderson in the house. You have probably played either Dave's bass duets or one of his solo pieces or his bass quartet, and he writes so much beyond the bass, although I love his bass music. He's been composing for years and years, internationally acclaimed as a composer, and just such an awesome person. He's principal bass of the Louisiana Philharmonic in New Orleans and the Britt Festival Orchestra in Oregon, and we go way back. I played in the Britt Festival with Dave like 20 years ago at this point or something like that. We dig into all kinds of topics. What's the year been like? That's a big one. What his recent compositions have been. He wrote this very cool Nonet for the Musaica Chamber Ensemble, which premiered in early 2021. And we talk about Dave's path through the music world. Got some great Edgar Meyer stories, Frank Proto stories, much more. Quick shout out to our sponsors, Dorico, Ear Trumpet Labs, and Modacity. More on them later. But let's get into this conversation with the great Dave Anderson. You are always on my mind. First of all, you're an awesome guy. Second of all, I can't tell you how many of my students over the years have played your duets, your bass quartet, so many of your solo pieces. I mean, I love you to death, man. It's great. It's great to see you.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks for helping me too spread the word about my stuff. That's great, and all the stuff you've done for the bass world. And, just amazing things that you have covered. And I love reading about them. And, man, you're amazing. and great playing. How is San Francisco?
Oh, it's great. I love it. We moved out here because my wife she was a freelance harpist. One of the many things we have in common.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then she went to medical school, and this happened after I did Britt. This happened in like maybe 2007. She started to go back and do pre-med. So she got her residency out here in San Francisco, and then got hired last year at UC here in San Francisco. So yeah, we're right here in North Beach, man. It's pretty cool.
Oh, it's a great city, man. I've been there a few times and I always love it. The food is amazing.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
Great people.
Yep.
Great orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
Work all around there. I have a lot of friends who freelance there too, so that must be fun. And
yeah. Well, the next time you get out here, let me know, man. I'm in not that you're in a pretty great city for food and culture and everything yourself, but like we're in a pretty great part of town. It's where all the old beatnik poets used to hang out, and all these old bars from the 40s are still there. And
I was there. There's San Francisco Symphony. I got in the finals there. I was there for a whole week. And looking back, I wish I had just explored the city more. But I hold myself up in the hotel and woodshed like crazy. And man, I was near Market.
mm-hmm.
I was staying actually right on Market.
Mm-hmm.
So I was exploring around Soma area.
Sure.
I found a really good brew pub there that I think is closed now, unfortunately. I was back there not too long after that, but it was gone, unfortunately. But the food, man, just knocked me out. It was just that incredible seafood soup that has an Italian name. I can't remember.
Is it Chipini? Something like Chipini. Now that's not it, but that's
something like that. Yeah. Oh man, man, I loved it. And yeah, I mean, with my friend Dave Beasley, we do some funky versions of one or two Grateful Dead tunes. So that too. And, but man, what a great place. And same here, man. If you ever come into New Orleans, let me know. We're no longer living in New Orleans proper because of what happened with Katrina.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Man, the real estate just went through the roof. Mm-hmm. And it was an important time to have a home rather than renting a place or something, because, our kids, everything. And man, it was a huge, and it was funny, good friend of mine, actually, bass player for the Radiators, Reggie Scanlon, his area didn't flood in New Orleans. So he and I were in touch, and he told me, oh, there's a house that is right across the street from mine, and I'll go talk to him, because I think he said something about selling it. I'm going to find out what the price was. He called me back and said, man, you won't believe it. It's going to be close to $1 million.
Wow.
For a 1 bath, 3 bedroom, not even what. So we ended up heading out here in Metairie.
Oh yeah, sure.
But that's all right. But that's the cool thing about New Orleans, is that you can get anywhere in the city very quickly. It's so closely knit. I mean, I can get from my house down to the French Quarter in 10 minutes, unless the traffic is really bad, then it would be 20.
Wow.
But, it's everything's close by, and the food and the culture, everything's really cool here. It's been a sad year, man.
Yeah.
We lost Ellis Marcellus.
Oh, right. That's right. Wow.
Yeah. What a great guy he was. And just such a huge supporter of all kinds of music here in New Orleans. And we got to be friends. And he and my father also got to be friends. Man, it was tragic, because actually we were going to do a gala concert in one of the fancy hotels, and part of it was I was going to be in the rhythm section with him playing, and really looking forward to that. And every time I was down near where he was playing or something like that, I always stop in and try to talk to him or something like that. And just incredible, and how he pushed all jazz musicians to study classical, technique, and all his sons, everybody, they had to, they didn't have a choice. And, and that's what he was very, very active in bridging, the two things, and vice versa. I mean, when I was first in New Orleans, he was sending me some jazz bass players to learn bow technique,
nice,
and stuff like that. And, and it was great too, because, I got to be friends with a lot of the jazz people here, that I did that with my son too. He plays cello, but he also plays jazz guitar.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it kind of, same kind of thing. And, that whole spirit with it is really, very strong here. And, and man, the orchestra actually knows how to swing. It's pretty good.
One of the rare places where that's
absolutely.
I came down, but man, we're going back 20 years at this point almost, but I came down, I still play in Memphis in this chamber orchestra occasionally. And I had like a week of playing the Iris Orchestra, it's called. And then I was subbing with the Memphis Symphony. And so I came down and hung out in New Orleans, and I hung out with you. I went and saw a rehearsal. This was, was it the Orpheum? What was that? Is that the hall that it was in? Yeah, which got flooded, right? Yeah,
it did. But man, they did a great rebuilding of that hall, and it sounds even better.
Oh, cool.
I mean, it sounded great then too. But yeah, we moved back in there. It took a couple of years for that to come into. But yeah, man, I love that hall. It's great.
Oh, that city, I love it. I can't wait to get back there. I'll let you know the next time I'm around here. And please, same thing in San Francisco. That Soma area you're talking about, my favorite brewery in the city. I'll give them a shout out. Cellar Maker. They opened in 2014, I think, and they're epic. And that's about a half-hour walk from where I'm at, 45 minutes. So I have it timed out to I hit that door right at noon. Like I could, I know exactly what time to leave my house and start walking. So
that's it. And then a walk back, we'll walk the beer off.
That's right. That's right. You got it. The lessons we learned.
Absolutely. Man, well, that's great. And so many other things too, San Francisco. Actually, my niece is there now. Her husband is involved in medicine as well. And they just had their first kid.
Oh, wow.
So another reason, got to get out there and visit. And who knows, man, I'd love to, like, if Britt happens this summer, I don't know. You know, I'd love to, you know, maybe when Britt's over, head down there and
come on down, man. Come on down.
Yeah.
That would be great. And you know, my brother moved to Portland about 2 years ago. And so I've been, I need to get up there more. COVID's made that hard, but
No.
I'm headed to Oregon a lot more than I used to be too. And I have so many great memories of Britt. That's such a special place. That's such a beautiful area. What a cool, how long when did you start doing that again? Remind me.
Let's see. My son is 26. I've done it for 28 years.
Wow.
I think I've taken a couple off, but yeah, that's pretty much it. And, you know, it's been improving all these years. We have a young music director, Teddy Abrams, and man, it's fun. You know, there's a lot of good stuff going on there. It's a beautiful area. That's my favorite part. And I've become very good friends with a lot of local musicians and other people in Oregon. And man, it's like, and they've commissioned, like I wrote them a celebration piece for the 50-year anniversary of the festival. And man, it was fun. It was fun to write that, and there are little references here and there to various things about musicians in the orchestra and stuff like that. And but yeah, it's you know, it's going well, and I've done some of my chamber music there too.
Oh, that's
quite
awesome.
a bit of it. And man, it's just a beautiful place. And really, what year was it that you were there?
Oh, it was Greg Sarche recommended I send in a tape. And so this was like 2001, maybe somewhere right around there. And I remember Greg talking about, I thought, like, I could never get into this thing that Greg Sarche was doing. And then you all accepted my tape, and I found myself out there and had a great drive from Chicago out to Oregon. And I have so many good memories of that place. And I love Oregon. And are you still driving from New Orleans to Britt?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Actually, I love the drive. I you know, it's funny because you know, parts of it is tedious, but I try to set up something on the way. You know, like I've got a couple of times. Oh well, my guitarist Dave Easley, he was doing a solo tour, and he was scheduling it, and he called me up and said, "When are you going to be driving through Kansas City?" And I gave him a date, so we set up a gig, and we hired a guy who plays killer Hammond B3 and a great drummer, and we did a set at this cool place. And actually, it was funny because there was some thing that had just ended outside, and then they all came in, and they had a table set up next to the mixer board, and this one guy came up to me and gave me his card, and he said, "Hey man, I just recorded your set." I plugged right into the board. And man, it was kind of cool. And then other things like I've done a couple of master classes, different places, or the NRO up in Breckenridge.
Oh, cool.
I've gone there and, you know, hanging out. My son, actually, it's sad. My son got principal cello of that, and then they canceled it. So,
what a bummer, man.
I hope that it happens this summer.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's so tough for all of us. I mean, I'm lucky that the LPO, we're doing limited concerts, and it's not full pay yet, but we are doing virtual, you know, and it's funny. We're in the Orpheum, but the way they rented it, actually the main floor can be lifted up hydraulically to the same level as the stage. So we're spread out all over you know, all over the hall, sort of. And it's tough, like the one, and we're just using one bass, you know, like 3 cellos, 4 violas, etc. And like we just did the Mendelssohn Italian, and man, that was nerve-wracking because if I made a mistake, everyone would hear it.
My practicing companion, Modacity, this awesome app. It is so great for getting you to really think about your practicing. And there's what's called a deliberate practice mode. It tracks everything that you are improving upon and time spent in every piece. And it's just so great. Here is founder and CEO of Modacity, Mark Gelfo, on what the app does.
I use the deliberate practice feature in Modacity a ton. So what I'm logging my improvements. Oh, I improved my articulation today by using this strategy. And then I see that in my log. So I see all the improvements that I made, the strategy that led to that improvement. I see the star rating as well as the time spent.
It is so satisfying to be able to look back on your history like Mark's describing. I do that all the time, and it keeps me inspired and energized and feeling like I'm really making progress. Learn more at modacity.co. And if you visit our site, we've got a special offer for lifetime access for this app. Thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast, Modacity. This episode is brought to you by Dorico, the advanced music notation software from Steinberg. And one of the features that perplexed me at first, and then I realized its brilliance, is their concept of flows. Here is Daniel Spreadbury, Senior Product Manager, on what flows are and how they work.
The ability to have multiple exercises or multiple songs or whatever, it's so obvious because music is very rarely just one through composed bit from start to end, whether it's a show or a symphony or a sonata or a songbook or whatever. Music's in sections. That's just how it works.
That is how it works, but that's not how most music notation software works. And the ability to break things up like that, oh my goodness. When I'm creating exercises or anything of the sort for my students or any sort of project that I have going, that makes organization so much easier. Exporting is a breeze. Everything that you do in Dorico is beautiful from the get-go, which is really cool coming from other pieces of software. Check them out at Dorico.com. That'll take you to their site on Steinberg's website. And they have a free product called Dorico SE where you can do practically everything that you can in the full version of Dorico for up to 2 parts. That's more than enough if you're doing bass duets or anything of the like. Thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast, Dorico. Well, when you're spread out like that too, like what a weird, it's like the opposite of the way we're designed to play music. I haven't done the last concert I played. God, it was almost a year ago at this point. I did a bass quartet. Andres Martin, this younger composer, we did one of his bass quartets here in San Francisco for this bass bash. And then the next day, shelter in place went into effect. And I had this really dark phone call or a Zoom call with the other people in the bass quartet, all of whom were getting out of music to do something else because there's no work on the horizon. I mean, the nice thing is here in my neighborhood in North Beach, where all those kooky bars are and stuff, they've been having live music. They actually set the band up inside the place, and then everybody's hanging out outside. So actually, I've been seeing a lot of live music here. Then everything got shut down for the last month in California, but today is the day it reopens, so I'm gonna head back and catch it. And actually, great. I was talking to a bassist that plays a lot of he plays tango, he plays classical, he plays a lot of funk and rock and stuff, and he was telling me, he's like, I have more work than ever these days. It's weird because people have been so thirsty for music, not be able to see concerts that as soon as this begins to blow over more, man, I'm never taking a concert for granted ever again. I mean, I never really did, but I just, it's yeah.
It's a tough time. I mean, here in New Orleans, they're doing some things like that. I know Bourbon Street, they started to have live music again all of a sudden. And man, they were, but limited capacity. And there are some things like that. We call them front porch concerts, stuff like that. Right. Jams. My trio's done a few of those. But most of what I've been doing is all virtual, unfortunately. I mean, I love interacting with an audience, that's for sure. And then, being able to go myself, that's why I think, did we hang out on Frenchman Street when you were here? I think.
Yeah. Back when I was visiting. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I saw you play a show too. You had this didn't you have some awesome double neck electric bass?
The double neck. Yeah, that was it. Well, that was I had that made because the band I was in was sort of a fusion band, but there, and it's a long story, but in some tunes, I'd actually want to slap some stuff, and then I wanted to play fretless on a solo, and then back to slap bass or something like that. So yeah, Sal here in town, we talked about it. He said, I can make you one. I don't play it anymore because it was too heavy.
Yeah.
It was the heaviest bass I ever had. But actually, I have a new bass, though. Here, I'll take my camera.
Yeah, let me see.
It's awesome. It's, I have, let's see if I can do it this way. There's a,
the yeah. Oh, wait, I know. Yep, there we go.
Great bass. I wonder if I can, I don't know how to do it on here, but I'll just turn it around this way.
Yeah, no worries.
I have a Fodera that they made for me. It's fantastic bass.
Wow. Oh.
It's spalted maple, and brass, very nice golden stuff. Beautiful neck, 6-string, and it is the ultimate funk bass. I love this thing. And then another one here. This is a guy up in St. Louis. His name is Dave Certain. He's a great jazz bass player. And I met him when I was on the road one time. He made me a 6-string Fender Jazz bass and fretless. And there it is.
Oh, that's awesome.
With the reverse headstock. just to be funky, he said. And then the one thing I did here was at the very top of the fingerboard. Do you see that?
Yeah, I see that.
I added a little bit block with 2 frets on it, so I can actually slap this one.
Oh, cool!
And it sort of sounds like a slapper.
Oh,
but yeah,
wow.
So it's been fun. And man, the Fodera guys are so cool. Man, they built Victor Wooten sort of like an electric upright, but he actually plays it this way and uses a German bow.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's so cool that I was thinking, if I ever come up with the funding, they are expensive, but they're well worth anybody who questions that. It's the best electric bass I've ever played. It really, and there are things that they did that I requested that made it just gorgeous. Like it's hollow body, but they're just chambers, not open with an F hole or anything like that. And it warms up the sound so well. So, and it has incredible, everything's in such beautiful alignment. So simple and very adjustable too. The bridge is fantastic. You can do anything you want with it. And you can order the width of the strings, and that could even be adjusted slightly too. So, a lot of 6 strings that I had tried, the strings were so wide, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, they're a great instrument company. So someday I'd love to work with them on a really cool electric upright that would sound really good too.
Yeah.
They have a lot of stuff that they can do as far as natural sound. Would be a really cool thing. Something, if I wanted to fly somewhere for an upright gig or something like that.
Yeah.
The Prescott, I can't fly with that.
Oh, well, that bass is a tank. It's a
yeah. It is. It's a ridiculous thing. It sounded really good. There was an accident with it. It was Opera Week. We're the orchestra for the opera here. And, we leave our basses in the pit during that week. And unfortunately, it's very sad. This lady who was, sweeping up the stage or something late at night, and they're supposed to have work lights on, but they didn't. And she didn't realize that it's one of these multi-purpose places where they do the opera, and she didn't realize the pit was down, and she fell. And it's a long fall. And of course, the Prescott broke her fall, which is great because she was both ankles broken and a bad concussion. But I think if my bass hadn't been there, it might have killed her. So I had to take it back up to Andy where I bought it. and they did a restoration on it. The neck was basically ruined.
Okay.
Broken. But the top was fine. No problem with the top. That was great. A little damage to the top of the back and a few other little things. So it's kind of cool. They did a good job. And they actually shortened the string length because it was 44.5 inches.
Wow.
And that was even with the extender on the nut and bringing the bridge up.
After several years of planning, I'm so happy that my course, Beginner's Classical Bass, is out on Discover Double Bass. This course is made up of 66. Yes, that's a lot. Video lessons which cover a wide range of topics on classical double bass, starting from taking your bass out of the case, which is very fun to film, and Jeff Chalmers of Discover Double Bass and I have a great blooper reel about that, and leading to different bow strokes such as staccato and portato. The topics also include posture, simple scales and arpeggios, left-hand technique, bowing technique, simple pieces which are fun to play, practice tips, and much more. You can learn more through the link in the show notes or just visit discoverdoublebase.com/Jason Heath. This episode is brought to you by Ear Trumpet Labs. These are hand-built microphones out of Portland, Oregon, and they make an excellent mic for upright bass called Nadine. Barry Green got to try this mic at our 2020 online bass summit where Ear Trumpet Labs was a sponsor, and he was singing its praises all weekend long. It's an instrument-mounted condenser mic with an incredibly clear, natural sound and great feedback rejection. It's durable and works with in-ears, monitors, you name it. Not to mention, Christian McBride, Barry Bales, and Missy Raines are all Nadine users. Whether it's classical, jazz, Americana, or bluegrass, this mic seriously delivers, and they're offering a free t-shirt, especially to Contrabass Conversations listeners with a purchase of a mic. Just visit www.eartrumpetLabs.com/contrabass to claim yours and check out Nadine. Yeah, it was still that long because I remember that extender on that bass. You had that back when I was playing Britt, I think. I remember just this massive. Everything about that bass seemed massive. It sounded great, but I'm sure it sounds great now. Again, if Andy and those guys were working on it.
Oh yeah, they did a great job. I mean, that they were awesome, and I was very lucky. We have good insurance with the orchestra, and they. They covered it, and they did. And it looks great. It's a beautiful neck that they put. They kept the scroll and the whatever we call it, the gearbox.
Yeah, right.
But man, they did it so well. You can't even see that they're not original of the neck. That somehow they made it work. They actually brought the scroll back a little bit because my extension, the strings were very high in order for that to work, and I had a Beast extension on it, but when they did that, Andy called me and said, "Man, we're not going to be able to do the B extension. Well, we could, but it's going to stick up so far that I'm afraid you'll be susceptible to."
Yeah.
So I said, "All right, we'll just do a regular one." And then it's kind of cool. Edgar was here. We played my duets, and we talked a lot. He was playing the bass, and we talked a lot about it. And he said, "Man, why don't you just play with a low D? Tune down a whole step, and then, you don't have to." I tried the detuner thing. That they work great for electric bass for the upright. It didn't really work. Edgar shook his head too. Said, "Man, you should, why don't you the detuning?" And it's like I remember I had to do that for the back in college, the Proto 63 Sonata.
Oh right.
And even if you have the extension or whatever, you had to have detuning. So, and then. Before that, even before I had an extension, sometimes I would do the detuning, sort of like Page and Casimir.
Yeah.
But man, it really, I've adapted to that now, and it's fantastic. And that's the thing. A couple of my pieces now, they are low. There's, let's see, 2 guys in my section have low B extensions. The other guys have C, but man, it really, this new piece that we're going to premiere next week. There's definitely some low B's in that work pretty well.
Well,
and
it's such a great note to have, isn't it? You probably can't see my bass in the background.
Yours is a B.
Yeah, I got a B, and it's jack stat, and so it's got that gigantic scroll, so it doesn't look too ridiculous, and it's, just having that one extra note. There's something really. I was talking to a bassist named Doug Johnson back in Chicago, and he had some sort of scientific theory about why that B is so satisfying. And there's something about the resonance of the earth is related to. I don't remember exactly. And whether or how true that is, I'm not sure either. But there is something about that note, right? I mean, it's only a half step lower, but there's so many places.
There's something about it too.
Yeah.
And when Andy found my Prescott up in Detroit, hadn't been played for a long time or something like that. It had gut strings on it, but it was 5-string, and he converted back to 4 and all that. But when I put the B extension on it, I couldn't believe the sound of the B on that. That just seemed to be the Prescott's favorite note, something like that. And but here, it's funny now. I have a B flat. Now I haven't put that in any pieces, but I have been occasionally sticking one in there.
That's awesome.
Usually not so subtly. And then I have the other bass that Andy made for me was a replace. I lost my backup bass, which I would use for outdoor pops, stuff like that. He built me a copy of the Prescott, but scaled down a little bit. And actually, it's great. I can go back and forth. I don't even feel the difference.
Wow.
I mean, Andy, has known that for a long time, and he did a great job doing that. So that has the B extension on it. Well, so since I'm doing this D tuning, when I tune that down, I have a low A.
Now that is cool. That is because I've done these school demos where I play for kids and I play the low B and then I go over to the piano and I find that note. Well, you can even take it a couple. It's you basically got the register at that point.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So that's cool. So you're doing that drop D tuning. You're just used to that at this point. The composer I mentioned, Andres Martin, he always plays with drop D as well, and all his pieces are written with that in mind. So there's some things, and I'm not so used to that. So I was playing one of his pieces, and I didn't have I was trying to do the drop D, and I was like playing a whole step off all the time on the low string.
I know it, but I remember just thinking, like working with Frank Proto, and he just think that you're playing the thing, on the D string up here. Like if you see an F sharp, okay, it's gonna be your 4th finger right there, straight across, and stuff like that. And then the other thing I love about the D tuning is, it's so easy to play a 5th in that area too. And man, if we have division, it's just a 5th, I'll play both notes.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's nothing to it, very easy to keep them in tune and stuff like that. And man, I have a lot of fun with that.
Okay,
really
you're
cool.
giving me some ideas for my practicing later on today, Dave. I think I might join the crowd, get that low A happening. Yeah.
Well, it was so fun, when I started, after Edgar told me, I thought, man, I'm going to definitely do that. It'd be really cool. And actually I did it because when we did my duets, I tuned up I put solo strings on and did it that way. But I kept the C just right where it was. And so it was the same sort of technique. I tell you, it flipped me out to play a piece in solo tuning. I've always had a hard time with that. But your piece in solo tuning, and then playing your piece with Edgar. Was that the first time you'd played a one-on-one with Edgar? Yeah, we messed around years ago when we were both students at Aspen.
Okay. Oh, actually, so you guys were students together at this overlap. Okay, that's awesome.
It was great. I met Edgar actually his younger sister was in my class when I went to Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
And so my first day there, I was up in the bass room, unpacking my stuff and putting my bass in this thing. And Edgar was there with his dad, and they were just walking around. Hey, let's go check out the bass area. And that was the first time I met him. And then, I'd see him. We did a lot of collaboration with IU.
Mm-hmm.
He was there.
Mm-hmm.
And, so over the years, there were plenty of times, and we had a lot of mutual friends and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just always so great. He'd hear me playing something and he'd give me suggestions and stuff like that. When I was just practicing at Aspen, especially, that was really, really fun.
Wow.
And I was working with Stuart Sankey,
mm-hmm.
And great time. I mean, he's played with us. He played with us at Britt too.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fun night.
I'll bet.
Yeah, we went down. I said, hey, why don't you come on down and have a beer afterwards? Love to hang out. He goes, well, okay, I'll have one, but I can't. Well, we were there till 2:30, yakking it up with the whole bass section and everybody. And so, we were doing Brahms. I think it was Brahms 4
mm-hmm.
after his concerto. And he said, hey, is it all right if I sit in? Yeah, man, of course. And so he did. So I turned to him and I was like, hey man, you sounded great. We're sort of sitting in two rows
mm-hmm.
at that time, or he was sitting right behind me. And I was like, oh man, that's awesome, man. What kind of strings do you have that you can tune back down? And I never tuned up. I've always tuned like that. So I don't even think of it as, any other way. So
isn't that interesting? I guess, yeah, if you just get used to that and thinking, then I guess you don't have problems. You're just playing an instrument in a different tuning. There's a younger guy named Ethan Yojevitz who I don't know if he ever studied with Edgar. I'd have to remember, but he does a lot of like crossover music. I think he lives in Nashville and does also, but he tunes like that as well. So at least the last time I talked to him, and just always thinks of that as an open A string, which is funny because Gary Carr does not, or other people known for solo tuning. I think he actually thinks open G, when he's playing the top solo string.
Right. Yeah. Something like that. And that's another thing too. Gary Carr has played a couple of my pieces, but pleading with me to write it in solo tuning. And I got to do that. I have to, because he especially wanted the bass and harp
mm-hmm.
pieces. I think those are the ones that he really wants. So, that's not a huge problem for me to do that, but unfortunately my wife's going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
We'll have to repedal it and see if it'll work up a whole step and all that. But that's one of these projects I just have not, gotten around to. That it's been pretty busy. The shutdown, man. I had this piece that I knew I had to get done. This is for it's called Musaica Chamber Ensemble here in New Orleans, and it's a good mix of instruments and stuff. And we had planned on it, and of course everything had to be delayed. But once, and I sort of had some ideas and I'd sort of sketched out some things, but I was going to, over the summer, I figured, I'll get it done. And then we're going to play it in October. Well, now, we're not going to do it till February.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the thing is that I was having a terrible time coming up with anything. It was like writer's block, and it drove me nuts. And I actually, Frank Proto and I talked, and he said, man, same with me. He said he hadn't been able to write anything for a while or something. And so there were several things that I did that really helped. For instance, composers who I love, I had never really checked out Shostakovich's Fourth Symphony.
Mm-hmm.
I heard all of his other ones, played most of them, but never the fourth. So I thought, I'm just going to, and, you can get a score while you're listening, or on YouTube, I found there's one place that has all the Shostakovich with the scrolling score.
Mm-hmm. That's
going
cool.
through. Yeah, I like that. And not only that, but some of his like string quartets, I'd heard a few, but there were some that I had not heard, and really wanted to, there's one that just has the ridiculous viola part. Oh, which one is that? The 13, I think, or some. But it anyway, it was fun. All of a sudden, so that helped. That was one thing I did, and I also, just trying to find other works that I loved, but hadn't listened to for quite a while, like the Festa Roman by Respighi. And I have a score for that, so I thought, oh man, I got to listen to that because the color and beautiful orchestration stuff that he does, and all that kind of thing. And so it sort of broke me out of it, and I was able to do it, but it was still tough. I mean, there's just so much going on that's crazy right now, and I was glued to the news, and just so many crazy things that it was pretty hard to go in and say, okay, I got to focus on this and do it. But finally, I got the damn thing done.
Well, I can't wait to check it out, because it's next week, right? Isn't when you're doing it?
Next Tuesday evening. It's at the University of New Orleans, and I'll put it up on my Facebook. Okay, cool. Too. I'll have a link up there, and it's a full program. My piece will be last on the program, and it's a Nonet, and so for flute it doubles on piccolo actually for just one section, and then oboe, clarinet, harp, violin 1, violin 2, viola, cello, and bass. And harp. Did I say harp?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. It's pretty straightforward piece actually. The first movement is kind of like in sonata form. I love writing in forms. I really do. I try to abstract from them here and there and things like that. But there's quite a bit of stuff that I wanted to do throughout this entire piece are quotes from some of my earlier pieces.
Oh, cool.
Like that. Yeah. I thought, that was another thing I was thinking with writers, but well, just quote something, I can plagiarize myself. Mm-hmm. So I did that. And, like, for instance, there's a quote from that celebration piece I wrote for the Britt Festival. There's a little bit from my second sonata that I wrote for Hal. A little bit of that, a few other things like that. And, it's the ending of it is very, very dark. I don't know why, but it's sort of the flute playing the main theme again at 1/4 tempo, and just cello and bass playing very dark pizzicato and ending with a low D. And then the second movement, you'll laugh. The title of this second movement is Funk. And it's just, I've always wanted to give an example of playing funk with a bow, and trying to get classical musicians to play funk. And, so there's funk, there's snap pits from the violin, viola, bass and cello are playing in unison, a lot of sort of Giaco influence, a couple of things in there, absolutely. And in the middle of it, there's this middle section that goes to B, and that's when the low B is happening all over the place. And there's even a quote from, it's not anything other part of the tune, but it's a bass line from Stratus by Billy Cobham on the album Spectrum.
Nice.
Which is that was like when I was a kid, man. I loved that album. Like funk, I suddenly found it. It's like neighbors said, "Hey, have you ever heard of the Meters?" in New Orleans? And I said, no. He goes, check this out. And man, I didn't give the album back. I mean, I learned every tune on that album. I had to, and Stratus, well, there are other tunes on that album, Red Baron, and, there's some jazz stuff. Ron Carter plays on that some. Sklar plays electric on that album. And God, that bass line is just one of my favorite lines in B minor. So it's just a couple of measures of the bass line, and none of the other Cobham stuff over it was happening. I didn't plagiarize it. It's just quoted the bass line. So I met Billy Cobham once. I very lucky. I got to meet him one time, and I suppose if I get worried about it, I could ask him if it's all right. And he seems a very cool guy. So, and then the third movement is an elegy, which I wrote in memory of all victims from COVID. Again, there's so many people in music who we've lost, but all others, my publisher passed away from it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wow.
Yeah, it's very sad. Ron, his wife, I think about 6 weeks or might be 8 weeks before she passed away. And I wrote to him, "Al, I'm so sorry." And then he got it and did not survive it either. So that has been shut down. However, his son, Jeff, he's in the process of taking it over. Jeffrey's a great jazz pianist in New York. So he went back. His father was up in Wisconsin. He went back up there, and I think he got everything and back in New York. And they're not going to be able to do the printing and the binding or anything like that, but they can send it out as PDF file. So, and I'm not sure exactly when that's going to happen. There are a few people who have gotten in touch with me that they're desperately needing some, so we just work something out. It's all right. I'll send you a PDF and you send me a check, and that's fine. But I want to get it out there for everybody.
Yeah, keep me posted to when that all comes up online, because I remember I ordered something of yours within the last couple of years, and I remember dealing with Wisconsin somehow, and I thought Dave's not in Wisconsin, but, but
oh yeah, well that's Proto laughed and said, "Well, there won't be any hurricanes up there to destroy all your music, man." So that's what I did, and. Yeah. So, I'll definitely let everyone know when that's up and going. It's funny. Jeff said his dad had such a unique and hard to decipher system that he used, so that he and his wife, like for instance, my quintet were playing on one of our concerts coming up, and I needed a fresh set of parts to give out to the other players. It's going to be on one of the Philharmonic concerts. It was supposed to be coming up here now, but they postponed it for whatever reasons. I don't know, but we're doing it in March. That's fine. But so I got in touch with Jeffrey because I had used parts, but I wanted a clean set for everybody. And so he sent them to me. Great. And I gave them to our librarian, who printed up and bound really nice set. So it'll happen. I'm just so sorry about Ron. He was such a nice guy. He published hundreds of people. I mean, just so many things, and really very well-rounded. A lot of great stuff. David Baker, all his stuff was still there too. He was still selling that, and a bunch of other people like that. That it was really, I was so sad to hear that. And so anyway, and then the last movement, definitely you'll hear, if you guys hear it, there's definitely some Shostakovich influence.
Okay.
In it. Definitely. Which I never get tired of playing Shostakovich stuff. And it it was so interesting to hear the Fourth Symphony. It really a lot different than a lot of his others, and I was really taken aback by it. And then one of the last pieces before he was slapped by Stalin was his cello sonata, which I transcribed actually and played it on a recital. Oh boy, over 20 years ago. And it works great on bass. There's some really cool stuff in the scherzo. There are these glissandos. I just reversed the strings to do them on. But man, if some things up very high, some things I took down. It's a fantastic piece, and I was very lucky because Maxime, when I first got here, came back to guest conduct, and he would always conduct his father's works, and so I talked to him about it, and he said, "Oh, sure, you can publish it." So, which I haven't published yet because it was funny. I took the cello part, and that's how I didn't put it all into the computer yet. I will, and Lynn Harrell and I talked about it too. Actually, that was another sad loss. Lynn, he just, I mean, now it's over a year ago, but he came and played with us, did the Schumann, beautiful, 2 nights. And man, we hung out. He loved to hang out with people after both concerts till the wee hours. And it was great. And he has a great recording that I listened to refer to when I was working on a transcription with this great Russian pianist who also a conductor. But he and Lynn Harrell, it's a great album that he had. On one side is the Shostakovich Sonata, on the other side is the Prokofiev. What is that called?
Yeah, that beastly, challenging piece, right? I'm forgetting. Yeah, I'm forgetting what it is. Yeah, it's not. It's got a different name, but
yeah, it's got like concertina or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
but man, that album is so good, and man, that Shostakovich. Just over the years, I really got into it. You know, the 14th.
Mm-hmm.
You know, man, that is a challenge for bass players. We did it once here, and. I did it one other time. I can't remember where it was. Somewhere else I did it also. But man, it's a lot of fun.
Is that one of those? Is that one of those chamber symphonies? That's like his later ones got real small, right? In terms of the orchestration, if I remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 15th is for full orchestra, and I love the bass solo in the last movement. It's with vibes.
Really? I got to listen to that.
Juicy, and it's down low. It's this really juicy bass solo. And the only thing that's going on during that are vibes on slow vibration. It's really cool. Yeah, but the 14th, the first time I heard it actually was Edgar Meyer playing it at Aspen. Man, it's awesome. And the basses, there are 2 parts, 2 basses. And there's several, I mean, a lot of it were 2D, other parts where it's solo bass, and other parts where it's a duet. And like the opening of and it's many movements. It's like a 10 movement piece, and it's chamber. It's just, there's no winds or brass. There's percussion, and it's for bass, baritone, and soprano. And the first movement especially is this gorgeous thing where the basses are playing as a duet, and then killer second movement. Those are my 2 favorite movements. There are other parts of it that are really good, but yeah, that and man, we do a lot of Shostakovich here.
Well, it makes sense, especially with that Maxim connection. Because what years was he conducting the orchestra? That was before you got there, or
it was before I got here. Yeah. It was the last years of the New Orleans Symphony, and then they reformed as Louisiana Philharmonic. So I had worked with him several other orchestras where he was guest conducting a lot all over the place, and I've done about 5 concerts here with him, but he hasn't been lately. One of his best friends is a retired cellist from our orchestra, and he said he's retired. He doesn't want to, he just wants to kick back, I think, and maybe he's doing some work with scores or something, maybe new publications, because a lot of them are, the parts are kind of a mess. And so I remember he and I talked about that. Very nice guy, and really conducting his father's work doing the 10th with him. He took that second movement so fast, I could not believe it. But, and he was saying the first movement, these are the people. The second movement, he said, this is Stalin. And it just jumped, bumped, just like, whew.
Wow. What a cool experience. Like from the horse's mouth, as close as you can get anyway. Wow.
Yeah. It was so cool. It was a lot of fun. And that last movement, there's a little Hinastera and Hindemith and Prokofiev kind of thrown in there, not quoting, but influenced by, definitely.
I love explaining some of the quotes in your pieces to some of my students that I've worked on over the year. It's so, I love the way that you incorporate, and again, Shostakovich, someone who quoted all the time, especially his own work, but I just really love, I gotta take notes and start a playlist of everything you're talking to me about. Most of those pieces I haven't gotten into, like the Fourth Symphony. I don't know if I've ever listened to that. That's going to be my dog walking music.
It's really cool, and actually, I was taken aback. Like, I wonder why that's not done very often. It might be the size of the orchestra is intimidating a little bit, but we have done 5 through 15. Oh, and of course 1. But I don't think I yet to hear 2 or 3. Actually, that's something else I should do too. But, and other works too, that just, what was so cool too, was talking to Maxime about, when he was a kid and they were going into the bomb shelters in Russia. And that's, cause I asked Max how his dad composed. And he said, well, for a lot of years, he used to sit at the piano and, write things out from the piano. But starting during the Second World War, when all that was going on, he just had a pencil and a big score, and he'd take it into the, down into the bomb shelters for hours. And he would be just writing. And he said after that, he never used the piano for anything. I mean, maybe if he's working on a piano piece itself, he might do that. But from then on, he just, pencil and paper.
Wow.
That was it.
How do you write? Do you are you at the computer, or at the piano, or are you Shostakoviching bomb shelter it up style, just pencil and paper?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll do that. There are several ways I do it, and there's no right or wrong way for anybody. But I actually, a lot of it I'll do with the bass. I'll be improvising. Sometimes I may record a little bit of improvising, or sometimes I'll just start, like, I'll warm up. Whenever I practice, I do like very slow warm up, and then some scales, a couple of Petrakis or something like that. And then before I get to work on what my goal in practicing is, if I have one, is I improvise. Or I'll think, okay, what if I could play, or I'm going to play in the style of Shostakovich 14, or some Prokofiev, something like that. Or who knows what else, just whatever. I'll try to play Teen Town and improvise over the changes, something like that. I don't know. But improvising with the bow and maybe classical improvisation kind of thing too. So when I'm writing and I get to that point, that's when I start making little notes as soon as I can, because then that's the way it goes, man. You want to try to capture that. That's why recording is good. Sometimes, so by the time I say, okay, hit record, and I start, now, wait a minute, what was it? It's much better if I wrote it down. And then I also, I use Finale. I mean, there are lots of great programs out there. That just happened, I didn't want to take the time to learn a new one.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's what.
Yeah.
And I have a great MIDI keyboard. And there are several ways you can actually, you can keep time with a sustain pedal and improvise that way, and it'll notate it for you. Or you can play notes and then click on the number pad what you set up the frame for whatever measure you're going to work on. You can do it that way. Hold a note, hit the button, and that's very fast. And sometimes I do a lot of that. And then, sometimes I've done this where when it's kind of an interesting thing that I can't remember who the hell told me about this, but sometimes when I'm writing, to turn on a metronome right where you're writing, and have this steady time going. And when you're thinking about, when you're writing something new, something like that. And sometimes, while you're doing it, then you can write the rhythm down, or you can actually do immediate with Finale. You can actually have a metronome going, kind of thing, or you can keep time with your foot that way too. But it's kind of cool that I can't remember who said this to me or told me about it, but they said certain times it would be great to use a metronome while you're writing. Cool. I tried it. It does work. It's actually pretty cool. So,
do you tend to? I do like basically no composing, so I think it's really interesting how people work. Especially I've played so much of your music over the years. I'm such a fan. I've tried to. So, do you kind of work on one thing until it's done, or do you have like thousands of drafts in a folder on your computer of little ideas? And I was asking Michael Kurth, who's in the Atlanta Symphony, the same thing.
Yeah,
and
I know Mike.
Yeah, and he was telling me that he actually doesn't go back to that older stuff as much as you might think, because it's like he's a different person if he gets too far away from it. Like the idea he had maybe 5 years ago, I'm paraphrasing, but I was just like, how does that work for you? Do you have like 1,000 drafts sitting on your computer of?
Well, let's see. Like, for instance, a lot of pieces that I've written before, I save all of the stuff that I decided not to use. And occasionally I'll go back and look at them, and maybe a snippet from that or something might work. So I don't discard them. But like, for instance, when I was working on the octet, I co-wrote with my friend Dave Easley. It's a pretty cool piece. It's not published yet. We've been wanting to get it out there, but this Nonet that I'm doing and the octet has already been recorded. It's going to come out on a CD, I'm hoping by next fall, something like that. So Musaica plays Anderson, or so, I don't know what we'll call it that. But for that one, it was kind of interesting because Dave would come over and bring some ideas, and I had ideas, and we put them into my computer. And so with that, there are a lot of things in there that we ended up not using. And the same with, like, I wrote the second sonata for Hal. I had a lot of things in there that I ended up using in some of the other pieces that I've written since then. So I mean, yes, a lot of change. I mean, I don't know if I'd use any of the old ideas that for a long time ago, but I think it's kind of cool. And sometimes, oh man, I forgot. I should use that for this or something. I don't actively do that a lot, but you know, it's kind of hard to I mean, I don't have a technique with that at all. I mean, I never studied composition. I had one lesson with Frank. I told you about that. That was it. Make sure your parts look great. That's it. Yeah. But man, it was like, but man, what a, you know, I just honestly didn't have time. I mean, I kind of thought about maybe doing that at graduate school or something, but then I was already gigging and yeah, it's no time to do it. I did take a class when I was in college on orchestration, which I'm really glad I did, because that was really good. And I just still, I mean, that the other piece of advice that Frank gave me was to study great orchestration, you know, and, you know, especially, well, Mahler and you know, Respighi, of course. I love his orchestration, especially. I mean, Festa Roman, that, incredible. And, you know, and many others, Stravinsky, I mean, in all his different periods, I mean, definitely, I wrote a sextet a few years ago. It's a mixed group again. And it's funny. It's actually a set of variations. Mm-hmm. So it's hugely influenced by Pulcinella.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it's kind of cool. I found, I'll send you info on that stuff. That's not out yet either. That's another one that but it's cool. It's not a very long piece, and it's fun. It has some cool moments in it that, you know, I remember I used a little bit of the second sonata in that too. Just one variation. I thought, oh, it'd be really cool if I did it this way and sort of colored it that way. You know, I wasn't supremely fond of the 12-tone Stravinsky period. You know, I played Jacob's Ladder, whatever it's called. But yeah, and a few other things like that. But and some people really don't like his neoclassic, but I do. I really enjoy those. And of course, the Rite of Spring, man, that piece has so much complex and incredible orchestration, I think, and the use of different types of tonality, just fantastic, you know. And then or like the you know, the other ones are great too, but the Rite of Spring, man, I just that one, I always enjoy performing it too. Never get tired of doing that.
Well, I some of these influences described, I can hear them bleed over into your work, and just the timbral qualities and the tone colors that you get. You have such a wide tonal spectrum. I mean, I've listened to a lot of your music. I've especially listened to a lot of the bass music just because I've played it so often. But even like if we look at your bass quartet, when was that, from 1987? I was working with the Chicago Youth Symphony on that bass quartet. We did that a couple of years, more than a couple of years ago now, because I live out here. I was doing that down in Mexico. Everywhere I've done that, I played it myself with Michael Ovnani, my old bass teacher from the Chicago Symphony. We did, and like just the right off the bat, I can hear your writing, like in those first couple chords, and it's just like everything. It's so interesting that you had one formal lesson, which was Frank telling you to make things look pretty, you know. But I mean, I'm such a fan. I've always been a fan of your writing since before I met you. But I mean, I go back to, I think, my junior recital in college, I was playing something of yours, and so it's if there's one thing I've universally found with people that I've worked with, it's that they just gravitate toward your music. Like I was having a conversation with Diego Zacharias, who's a bass player living in Spain, who your Capriccio No. 2, I think, opens his album, and he was just like radiating love of your music and just so I'm such a Dave, I could talk to you you're like the perfect podcast guest. You're like, I could talk to you every week and we'd never run out of things to talk about, man.
I'm sure. Well, Jason, you're doing wonderful things too, man. I really, you're so well-rounded, and all the things that you're doing, and I constantly forward people, hey, check this out. This is great. You know, you're great at all this stuff, man. And it's really, you know, it's been inspiring to the bass world.
Dave, you're amazing. Let's not have it be 10 years before we do another one of these. I'm just such a fan of what you do. And yeah, folks, play his music, follow him. We got him linked up in the show notes and all the good things. We're going to close out here and get down to the waterfront before the sun goes down. So this will be a short outro. Let me just thank everybody that works on this podcast with me. Michael Cooper, Steve Hinchy, Mitch Mooring, Trevor Jones, and Krista Copper. That groovy bass in the background is Eric Hochberg, my friend from Chicago, and laying down the bass line. I'm doing a little G minor soloing on top. And Mitch makes beautiful basses in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Award-winning basses, great basses. Hey, he was just on the podcast recently. Go back a few episodes if you haven't checked that out. Thank you to Mitch and everybody, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jason Heath, and we will see you again soon for more life on the low end of the spectrum.